Story 1. When asked for my date of birth online, it feels like I am trying to win a prize on The Price is Right. I have to spin the little wheel really fast, so it takes me less time to find my year of birth. Story 2. A few minutes ago, I went to take bread out of the oven. Instead, I opened the dishwasher and stared at it, wondering what I needed to do. Story 3. You get these strange moments when you mention something from your youth, such as Phil Collins having a series of hits, and realize you sound like the out-of-touch older people you remember talking about Jan and Dean. Story 4. My filter faded first. I noticed that right after turning 40, I was no longer able to people please. I started speaking my mind and stopped giving awful people my time. My constant anxiety disappeared. I also noticed that I began gaining weight just by looking at the foods I ate all the time. I had to start moving more and eating less. When the doctor says it looks like it's time for reading glasses, that's your sign that you're getting older. I guess I should be worried heading into 50, but I'm just enjoying it too much. It was exhausting to be young and constantly feel the need to fit in and be liked. Story 5. I lifted my leg to pass gas and pulled a muscle in my back. I could hardly move for 2 weeks. That was when I realized I was old. Story 6. Your body will automatically let you know when you are getting too old to do certain things. Unfortunately, it will not let you know you are getting too old to do that until after you have done it. Yes, it is unfortunate. Story 7. Getting old feels slower, stiffer, and quieter. Signs include aches, forgetfulness, and less energy, usually noticeable by your 30s or 40s. Story 8. The first and most noticeable change, even in good shape, is that more effort and energy seem to be expended on small tasks. What was easy at 20 begins to be a challenge at 30, and this continues every decade thereafter. Story 9. The first time you see someone from high school and they look really old, you realize you have been out of school for 25 years. It is the same with certain celebrities. I realized I was old when Ozzy Osbourne looked more like the grandfather he was than the Prince of Darkness from my high school days. Do not worry about aging. Your youthful body is gone, but the brain you have now, full of wisdom and peace, is worth the pain. Story 10. I got old in my 50s. I hurt everywhere, put on weight, felt no joy, and barely moved for a long while. Then I stopped eating unhealthy food, started walking, and eventually started running. I am 62 now and do intervals on the hills, lift like a 30-year-old, and have more flexibility than ever before. Old age is a mindset. Story 11. Signs are the wrinkles that appear, just like you first noticed on your 5-plus-year coworker. Then it is eyesight. I held off until age 45 before I needed glasses. Then it is hair going gray. Embrace it. Then it is your inherited body and how you treated it. Accidents or injuries, childbirth or cesarean sections. Do your best with what you have. Take the trip. Phone your friends. Take up that hobby. I catch myself not wanting to change or learn something new. That is getting old. Stay vibrant and up to date. Story 12. Growing up, I hated naps. I thought people who took naps were lazy. Why sleep when you can do something else? I am in my 40s now. If I can have a nap, I take that time. I guess I am lazy now. Story 13. You feel a lot smarter than your younger self. When you look back, you often think, what an idiot. You are more rational because the prefrontal cortex has had time to develop, so you are less impulsive. You no longer experience fear of missing out, so you can skip events you do not really want to attend. You do not need to constantly play loud music. Chasing achievements and playing video games is no longer worth the hassle. You can play a game on easy mode and be content with it. Story 14. I noticed it around age 35. I used to be able to eat anything I wanted with no worries. I was genuinely shocked when I started putting on weight from barely anything. Fast forward to when I turned 50. I hurt my back while breathing. Yes, I breathed too hard and somehow strained my back at the same time. I talked to a massage therapist friend for advice. They said it was not the first time they had heard that. Getting older hurts. It is frustrating, and I hate it. Story 15. It does not feel like anything significant yet. 2 years ago, I would have said that you have less energy, flexibility, and mobility, but that turned out to be the result of excess weight and laziness, not age. My perspective may be skewed because I was not in great shape when I was young. Story 16. Mine hit about 60. I noticed thinner skin, quicker muscle loss, and receding gums. There were things I just didn't care about anymore, like makeup. It is just a hassle to apply, and I don't want to. Staying up late or drinking to excess is just borrowing from the next day or two. I am more secure in my own skin and recognize I am probably not going to make any earth-shattering impacts, so I am quicker to make the little decisions that can affect someone else's life, even if just for a moment. Maybe my small input might have that butterfly effect. Story 17. Hunched down on my knees to get the last jug of milk at the supermarket. I got stuck and had to crawl to my shopping trolley to pull myself up. I was mortified. Story 18. The signs appear gradually and unexpectedly. Gray hairs, sore joints, and lack of flexibility. You don't realize you can't do something until you actually can't do it. Sitting cross-legged? Forget it. Wrinkles, thin skin, thin lips, sunken cheeks. You lose collagen. Memory loss. The strange thing is, you feel the same inside, but you look different on the outside. And people treat you differently, like you're weak or have nothing to contribute. It is disheartening to know you are on a downward slope. Story 19. One random morning, for seemingly no reason, everything you once found intolerable in older people or laughed at them for doing, you will be doing. But wait, it gets better. Doing these silly things will make perfect sense. But really wait, because the next morning you will wake up and you will hurt. Everywhere. Why? Did you skydive? Bungee jump? Do reverse handspring off the high dive at the pool? No, you slept wrong. 1 week later you will wake to find a new pair of white New Balance sneakers, oversized khaki cargo shorts, and a stripped faded polo shirt neatly laid out at the foot of your bed. Where did they come from? Who knows? But you can contemplate it as you stand in the front yard yelling at the clouds. Story 20. Your body hurts more and for longer. Your hair turns gray, which makes you feel old. You feel sad because you likely did not do all the things you said you would by now when you were younger. You sometimes forget your age when you look at younger people. Your eyes and mind still feel young, but others do not see you as you see yourself. Story 21. I am a Generation X. Physically, when you eat out, you feel bloated and swollen. That did not happen when I was young. Now, restaurant food is generally saltier and fattier than what I eat at home, which makes me uncomfortable and causes weight gain. When you wake up, your body does not glide out of bed. It is more like a lumbering effort, and you do not feel rested even if you have slept enough. Your back feels stiff and does not bend like a supple reed. If your 20-year-old body was a flexible gazelle, your 50s body depends on how you treated it from age 14 to 49. Mentally, you used to get the latest releases from the bands you listened to. Now you do not recognize the names of the top 10 most popular singers and bands, and you do not listen to any of them. New music sounds terrible. You have been working so long now that you have forgotten about summer vacations. Everything is work and bills. It is all important. Everything costs a lot of money. Life is expensive and hard. You do not really hang out with friends. You are tired. You want to get home, eat, sit around, and go to bed. That is all you really want. Story 22. What did it feel like growing up? You do not notice. The only thing I have noticed is that in my 50s, I realized I had hooded eyelids. They are unusual. Story 23. When you start watching football and the juke moves they do look like they would tear all my ligaments and tendons. Story 24. 10 out of 10. Do not recommend. I am 60 years old and have had more bone spurs than boyfriends. You have to receive 3 cortisone shots before they will perform surgery. Story 25. For me, it was when I would pause before jumping down from something only 1 to 2 feet high. Not because I might fall, but because I knew how bad it would make my knees and feet hurt. Story 26. When the lumber yard would not let me load the cart, I stopped by a place to get a cup of coffee. The cashier gave me the senior discount without me asking for it. Also, the last time I got my driver's license renewed, they changed my hair color to gray. When I went to my doctor, the nurse told me that I was 5 feet 11 inches tall. I was 6 feet 1 inch in my 20s. The loss of energy is the worst part. Story 27. People you know start dying not on the road or due to unhappiness, but because of cancer, heart attacks, and other causes. Then you realize getting old is different for everyone, and not everyone gets the privilege of old age. Story 28. When you remember something that feels like it was not that long ago, only to find out it was more than 10 years ago. Story 29. Getting old is difficult and usually begins around age 40. It continues steadily from around 40 until death at 75. Just constant decline. Story 30. I am only 26, but I have noticed I prefer very early mornings to late nights. I go to bed between 7 and 8 p.m. and get up at 3:30 a.m. well rested and with nobody to bother me for 3 to 4 hours. Story 31. Remember when you had the urge to masturbate 100 times a day when you were a teenager? Well, no worries. Old age takes care of that problem for you. I am down to 98 myself and, God willing, will be turning 58 next month. I take weekly testosterone injections, an absolute game changer. Story 32. No longer able to sit cross-legged on the floor. If able to sit that way, getting up requires a nearby solid piece of furniture to pull up on. Story 33. I noticed when I could not walk or run as fast as I used to on the treadmill. One day, it just became a struggle to walk at my usual speed. Felt like I was power walking. My normal jogging speed felt like running. This happened in my late 30s. I am in my mid-40s, and it has slowly gotten worse. It is also tougher to lose weight. Story 34. My lower back hurts all the time, with varying degrees each day. My knees pop out of track if I get out of the car after driving more than 30 minutes. Story 35. One of the first signs I noticed of aging was hangovers. As a teenager, I did not get hangovers. As I got older, I would become dehydrated and tired. Then it started to feel like I got hit over the head with a shovel. There is also some age dysphoria. I am 49 years old, and there are times when I feel more like I am in my early 30s. It was the same when I was in my early 30s. I felt like I was in my early 20s. The time to recover from pain becomes ridiculous. For example, the other day I almost twisted my ankle on the driveway. There was no sprain or anything like that, but a week later I was still feeling pain in my ankle. I have become cautious because I do not want to slip and fall. I might fall and feel the pain for 2 weeks, whereas in the past I would feel it for maybe a day and then it would be gone. Your eyesight starts to decline around 40 years old. Mine comes and goes. I used to have 20/20 vision. Most days I do not, but some days I can see everything just like I used to. The same goes for what your stomach can hold. Eat a few slices of pizza in the evening, and you get severe heartburn. Story 36. One day you will wake up and your spine will have been replaced by one made of the purest pain. Probably around 30, definitely before 40. Story 37. Gradually becoming bionic. At 65, I had new knees. At 71, cataract surgery to replace the lenses in my eyes. My wife is 5 years younger than I am, but one hip ahead of me in the bionic conversion. We know too many surgeons. Story 38. You hurt your back sitting. You hurt your back sleeping. You hurt your back standing. You hurt your back. Story 39. Getting older is strange because I do not feel old. In my mind, I feel the same as I always have. In my experience, as you age, you feel the same on the inside, but your body, your reflection, and those around you show you that it is happening. Story 40. Turning 68 million next week. I guess that qualifies as old. Because of my body starting to fall apart in my late 40s and 50s, high blood pressure and prediabetes, I started to change my bad habits. I lost over 80 pounds, cut out most carbohydrates, and began intermittent fasting. No more blood pressure medications, only a low thyroid pill. I am probably in the best shape of my life. Truthfully, I feel great. Story 41. When you have to scroll on a computer to find your birth year, you are spinning that will like it is The Price is Right. Story 42. My knees have always popped, but recently one of them started popping twice each time, and it is so loud you can hear it across the room. Story 43. Hangovers became crippling once I hit my 30s. I used to be able to drink all night, get 2 to 3 hours of sleep, then roll out of bed and work my 8 to 9 hour shift the next day with no problems in my 20s. If I tried that now, I would be bedridden for an entire day and would be vomiting bile for hours on end. Story 44. I am 62 years old. Do not trust a fart or you may have an accident. Your joints become stiffer, you experience more back pain, and you may strain muscles you did not know you had. It becomes hard to get on the floor and stand back up. You cannot tolerate heat and humidity as well as when you were younger. Do not overestimate your physical abilities. As for sex, it is not as easy to get into specific positions as when you were younger. Story 45. Seeing the celebrities I grew up with passing away. Seeing old movies being rebooted, remade, or having sequels with the original actors now very old. Seeing fashion I wore as a teenager recycled into trends. Sometimes annoyed listening to music I grew up with turned into remixes or having completely changed lyrics. Having patience for people who are never willing to change and remain stuck in the same mentality throughout their lives. Suddenly, people my age are very political, which can either make or break long friendships or family relationships. It gets exhausting. Story 46. It hurts, but usually in a slow, achy way that isn't even unpleasant. Sometimes, however, something will hurt intensely for a day or two or months, and you have no idea why. You wake up in pain some mornings and think, what is this all about? Yesterday my knee hurt so badly I could barely walk. This morning it was somewhat okay. But I knew that wouldn't last. Midday I couldn't walk. It's 10 p.m. and my knee is fine, absolutely fine. I can tell it's going to stay fine for a while. Well, I don't know. Things you used to eat and drink don't work out so well anymore. I panic if I run out of antacid. If I'm going to have wine with dinner, I have to take an antacid beforehand, but also be careful to time it so it doesn't interfere with my blood thinner. There's no loss of enthusiasm, but now I am enthusiastic about a day when I don't have to do anything. One errand now takes the place of several. The rest can wait until tomorrow or the next day or maybe never. It's not really so important anymore. The real kicker? Catching a glimpse of yourself in a mirror or a reflection in a store window can ruin your day. Yesterday, I was waiting in line for a prescription, standing on one leg because my knee hurt, and there was an elderly woman in line in front of me. The pharmacist asked for her birth date, 1967. I am 11 years older than that woman. It is becoming apparent that there is also a tendency to go off on spontaneous rants. Story 47. I am turning 30 next month. Unfortunately, my joints are already being easily damaged by small actions like kneeling down to reach a lower drawer. Story 48. My feet and joints hurt. My vision is worse, and it takes me a while to remember things. I used to be good at multiplying in my head, but no longer. Attractive women do not notice me, but that is not new. Story 49. After turning 40, my body started hurting more. My sexual drive slowly decreases, and it is not enjoyable. I still thrive on hearing interesting stories because now my life is boring compared to what it was like 20 years ago. Story 50. Aches when you wake in the morning become the norm. Lying there sore, trying to remember what you did the day before to deserve this. Story 51. My loved ones are dying, my former classmates are getting married and having children, and everyone around me is growing up. My children are growing up. I cannot get up from the floor after playing with them as easily as I used to. I cannot sit on my legs or knees to bathe the children like I used to. Everything hurts, and my joints crackle and pop when I move. Story 52. You have zero patience for nonsense. You find the most civilized ways to tell people to go away. You do not want to impress anyone anymore. Talking to people is more of a chore than anything else. Peace and comfort come before anything else. Story 53. You will not notice a change in yourself. You notice change in the environment. That is how I feel when I hear the new employee was born in the 2000s. Story 54. Betrayal mostly. The body no longer keeps up with the requirements like it used to. Still strong as ever, but stamina is shorter. Story 55. Getting injured because your brain remembers your limits as different from what your body is capable of. This often begins in your 20s for some people. Story 56. I cannot take my health for granted any longer. It does not matter if I eat right, meditate, and work out. Things are starting to go wrong. Story 57. I thought this thread was about aging. No one here is getting old. Maybe getting older. I am the only older person here. I am 71. Story 58. Healing takes longer. Twinge your shoulder in the gym? That is a 9-month recovery period. I tend to accumulate injuries now. Story 59. I used to think National Football League players were adults. One day, without warning, they became children. I threw my back out that day. I am not sad all the time. Story 60. It's not something you notice lessening. You'll just go to do things you've done in the past with ease and find you can't do them anymore. Fitness and so on, especially. It takes much longer to make far less improvement than it did when you were younger. Injuries take longer to heal. Getting old is very difficult. Story 61. Early 40s, eyesight starts declining. Late 40s, cholesterol and glucose become factors you need to monitor. Mid-50s, aches and pains from arthritis and old injuries become more frequent. I am 57 now. Give me another 30 years and I will provide an update. Story 62. Since I started lifting in my late 40s, I have gained 26 pounds and am now much stronger in my mid-50s. I maintain this strength by taking naps every 3 hours. Story 63. Getting up is difficult. Climbing stairs is challenging. Joints feel stiff and creaky. Text appears smaller and smaller. Everything annoys me. Story 64. I have a new painful area almost every day for no reason. Within a few hours or days, it disappears and is replaced by a new pain in a different location. Story 65. I get surprised when an older-looking person is on television, and they are actually the same age as me. That surprises me. Story 66. I actually feel better at 48 than I did at 23. Part of this is because of bad habits such as drinking that I gave up. I am also more diligent about eating right, exercising, and having more purpose, such as family. The two things I notice, though, are my eyesight getting worse and stiffness. The eyesight change has been the most jarring since I used to have excellent vision, and now I need glasses to read my phone. The good news is that you age one day at a time. Story 67. I am technically Generation Z, born in 1997, and I already feel old. I have a few gray hairs. I used to be very ambitious, but now I feel tired. There are Generation Z individuals born in 2012 who have just started puberty. A few years ago, I started to go bald before I began using minoxidil and finasteride, which regrew my hair. Story 68. I'm 61 this year. I guess that counts as older in some people's eyes. I still feel 21 in my head. I ache more often for no reason, especially in the mornings. Choose the wrong pillow and I wake up injured. Small illnesses seem to last longer, and injuries take much longer to heal. I've noticed I need less sleep. It's not all bad. I take things a little slower and I'm in less of a rush. I enjoy the small things and live more in the present. I care less about what others think. I spend time each day in the gym, and my nutrition is very good. As a result, I'm in good shape for my age. If I could give one piece of advice, it's to look after your body. You only get one. Story 69. I am in my mid-20s and I notice how different my hands look. More wrinkled and worn. Like the hands of someone who has had to deal with too much for their age. Story 70. I am 62 and I do not have the aches and pains that many people my age have. I feel pretty good. I do notice my strength is not what it used to be. Even though I have lived in Florida most of my life, my tolerance for working outside in the heat is much lower than it was 5 years ago. The positive side is unless you are my immediate family or a friend, I do not care. I have Trump supporters all around me. I fly several pride flags. I wear satanic temple shirts while others wear Jesus Saves shirts. People have $80,000 trucks. I have a $5,000 Hyundai. Story 71. I still have my blunt attitude as a truthful person. People seem to appreciate it. I have trouble relating to people my own age, even though that is part of my job. I have creaky bones that I do not like. Story 72. Realizing I am slowly gaining more context about life through experiences only acquired over time. also experiencing more body pain. For context, I am young, only just entering my 30s. Story 73. It is mostly perimenopause, but I pretty much feel like I am rotting from the inside. Other than that, stuff just hurts. I spend 45 minutes every evening stretching, foam rolling, and icing to keep my joints happy. Story 74. I am in my mid-40s. My testicles have started to sag much lower in the past year. I also have to get up at night to urinate more frequently now. I pass gas much more often than I used to and sometimes cannot hold it in like before. It certainly does not help that I am starting to care less and less about passing gas in public. Small cuts that used to heal in a week are still red after a month. I began noticing small changes in my mid-30s, and now I am seeing more and more changes. Story 75. The first decline in performance occurred at 34 years old. I was a high-contact athlete and could no longer spar 4 days a week with men in their early 20s. At 40, I had to stop participating in certain sports due to daily pain. By 50, I switched to sports for older adults. Story 76. Feels like letting go without the ability to do so. Signs: cannot go from a crouching position to a standing position without holding on to something. Noticed it 5 years ago. I know I can improve this situation. I am working on it. Story 77. When you have a marathon sexual session and the next day you are walking like you lost your horse. I need to sort out my method for old hip joints. Story 78. You get angry about strange things. When I realized I was getting old, it was because I got angry about grass. Basically, the neighbor hired a lawn service. They cut about 6 feet on my side. Not a big deal, right? I saw it and thought, these people cut my grass. I just stopped and said, oh no, I'm getting old. Also, I declared war on a turtle and a rabbit, so there's that. Story 79. The slowing of my metabolism. When I was 17, I could eat a lot of food, run 10 miles, and I was very skinny. Now, if I eat a second slice of pizza and run 3 or 4 miles, I still have a gut. Story 80. One day, you suddenly wake up and everything you try to read up close is blurry. Glasses are needed. Your vision for distant objects is still good, for now. Story 81. I knew I was old when I heard Elvis Costello's Watching the Detectives being played on an oldies station. Story 82. Younger adults are the first to notice or imply that you are older. Since I was about 30, someone younger would suggest that I am much older. I did not accept it until my 50s. Morning stiffness makes me feel old, but it disappears after about an hour. I feel young for the rest of the day unless I am with my grown children. Story 83. Not caring what others think about your appearance. I am not trying to fit in with the trends people in their 20s are following. I am in my early 30s and am starting to notice whatever comes before fine lines. Maybe just a slightly deeper crease when I smile, subtle things. Story 84. Well, I am only 26 and I have more or less given up on my future. I am just doing what I can each day now. Story 85. This sums it up. Story 86. Generally annoyed by people and crowds. Bouts of great energy, bouts of zero energy. Regular worry about layoffs and redundancies that are not based on anything but the possibility of hiring someone cheaper. Impatience with poor service. A love of stretching. Those still got it moments when it comes to sports and exercise. Understanding work-life balance. Having a good group of true friends. Pizza. Spending quality time with aging relatives. Feeling nostalgic and then enjoying things you liked as a kid like comics and games. It is wild getting older. Story 87. I groan getting up. I fall asleep on the couch. It is harder to lose weight. I say the same things to my children that my father said to me. Story 88. You do not bounce back the next day after partying until 1 or 2 in the morning. The next day you feel awful. That crept up on me in my mid-30s. Now, in my early 50s, I know better and would never try such a thing. Story 89. Our species evolved to procreate. After the age of 40 to 45, everything declines. Metabolism is no longer permissive. Eating well and exercising become essential rather than optional. Story 90. It is not a steady process. Comes in waves with ups and downs. Overall, it is like climbing a mountain, reaching the peak, and then descending the other side. Story 91. You used to injure yourself doing things like sports, activity, or being careless in general. Now you injure yourself sitting up slightly awkwardly after waking up suddenly. You just twist the wrong way and you're out for 2 weeks. No landing on your head off a terrain park jump or falling downstairs drunk. Just moving slightly wrong. Story 92. Becoming overweight, unhealthy, and out of physical shape can lead to type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and issues with the back and joints that hurt and make cracking noises like Rice Krispie cereal. Men often experience baldness or have gray, thinning hair and develop a large abdominal area. Women transition from perimenopause to full menopause. Both men and women lose the youthful, attractive appearance, and some also lose their enthusiasm for life. Story 93. Mind-wise, it does not feel like anything. My youth, school, and everything feel like they were just a few years ago, as do my 20s and 30s. It is all just kind of held together as memory. Physically, I started to have to roll over to get up off the ground, and there is always a grunt. Story 94. I don't worry as much about other people's opinions because they are entitled to them. It is easier for me to establish and maintain my boundaries than when I was younger and less experienced. I am emotionally and chemically more balanced than I was when I was younger. I started noticing all of this in my 40s. Story 95. I was at a playground with my niece, and we were on the swings. I was trying to show her how I used to jump off the swing mid-swing. When I landed, I knew my knees and ankles were different. Also, if I do not drink enough water, the next day I feel hungover even though I did not have any alcohol. Story 96. I don't feel it unless I stress something. I was good in Jeopardy in my 20s but not good in my 60s. I have less stamina climbing hills. My sex drive around age 60 is headed straight down. But for general daily living, I feel as good as I did in my 20s. I recommend getting older to all my friends. Story 97. In my teens, I noticed I could not crawl around on my knees super fast like I did when I was 7. It hurt too much. But seriously, shoulder pain was probably the first issue for me in my late 20s. Story 98. I am only 36, but I cannot relate to anyone 29 and under. Some kind of shift happens when you turn 30, I do not know. Story 99. I had years where I did not catch a cold for 2 to 3 years at a stretch. I remember I had not had any fever for 5 years straight and hardly had a headache or stomachache. Now I get a cold 2 or 3 times every year, a headache almost every month, and an upset stomach every month. I can feel my body is not able to fight like it used to. Yes, back pain. Story 100. Socially, I think I relate to people pretty well, but sometimes I will be talking to someone thinking of them as an age peer and then realize they are young enough to be my child. That, plus many Generation X culture references that get blank stares in response. Story 101. Your energy decreases significantly every decade. My schedule when I had young children at home was chaotic. I don't think I could keep up with my previous pace in my current body. Brain fog, aches, and pains are common. It is really important to stay fit. Excess weight only harms your joints. The higher your age, the lower your metabolism. I am postmenopausal, so I think my metabolism slows down. Also, I have damaged my pancreas and am prediabetic, so no more sugar for me. I belong to Generation X, so I probably will not retire. Story 102. This year I turned 60. I still work, exercise, and have fun, but I am slowing down and get tired more easily. Story 103. The hangovers last longer and do not take as much alcohol to become severe. Because of that, drinking stopped being enjoyable for me, so I stopped drinking. Story 104. It starts slowly. A gray hair here. What's that tiny crease near my eye? I need another cup of coffee after already having 2. I am starting to take glucosamine because my knees and hips ache after a 5-mile run. It's not being able to fully open my eyes in the morning due to dryness. And the cause, I know for a fact, is that I didn't drink enough water yesterday. I have more in common with the elderly than with college students. Saying things like, I remember when, before cell phones and drive-in theaters. You don't remember September 11th. You weren't even born yet. Story 105. I filled out my application for Social Security this week because I am turning 70, and there is no point in waiting longer. I thought, how could I possibly be this old? Story 106. I think the strange experience is when you go from perfect vision to your eyes getting tired at night, and you understand what people mean when they say things look blurry. Another example is when you start avoiding activities that might cause injury, which often includes things you did not consider before, such as running in a field. Story 107. My father gave me wise words when I was about 35 years old, and I will share them now. He said, "Honey, forget everything you know about your body when you turn 50 years old." He said, "At the age of 50, your bowels will definitely go wrong, your blood pressure, your blood sugar, all will be affected. For sure, you will never be regular again." I thought, yeah, right? So I gave a half-hearted smile and said, "Thanks, Dad." He was so on point, it is scary. My father was amazing for sharing this warning, and I have shared it with others. Now, you are officially over the hill when you are used to party times, and now it is potty times. Story 108. From what I am reading, it feels like being unfit is easy. My fitness has been poor since I was 21. I am well practiced. Story 109. I am 60 in a few months. At the gym, I have to work twice as hard to get half the results. My hip is the worst. Luckily, for my age, I am doing well. Story 110. Hangovers get worse, weight starts piling on, random things hurt, and joints do not move like they used to. Story 111. I knew I would slow down as I got older, but I did not realize it was because everything hurts and takes 10 times longer to recover. Story 112. How old were you when you first found yourself sitting down to put socks and shoes on? That is what it feels like. Story 113. You start meeting people who were not even born when you were in high school, especially at work. Story 114. Not sure what it was, but I noticed that in old photographs of people, they looked more relatable. When I was younger and saw history books, the people seemed from another time, but as I got older, I recognized something in their eyes. Story 115. Your body has an automatic repair system, but that system starts to wear out over time. So you get the usual bumps, dings, and cuts just like when you were younger, but the pain is a little stronger, the bruises last longer, and you just cannot shrug them off like you used to. Story 116. Laughing and smiling with friends and noticing the lines around your mouth do not fade away as quickly and eventually stay there. Story 117. It is such a slow process that you really do not notice much change. At 70, I did not feel much different than I did at 55. Yes, you slow down a bit, but if you exercise and keep your energy level up, you can continue on. Just stay healthy. Story 118. Straightened up from brushing my teeth, and my back seized up for a week when I was 43. I had to work lying down. I hear similar experiences from coworkers in their 40s. I have actually managed it well since with physical therapy exercises and rarely have trouble now at 57. Story 119. I realized things were different in my mid-30s after a mishap where I broke my wrist. How did I do that? I slipped on a patch of ice while walking on the sidewalk. It was not a bad fall, just a simple slip. I did not realize my wrist was broken at the time. I thought it was no big deal and got up and continued on my way. However, as the day went on, my hand worsened, swelling to the point where I could barely use it. Later, at the clinic, the nurse told me my wrist was broken and that breaking your wrist like that is common among people in their 30s and those aged 60 and up. Why people in their 30s? Because they still have the energy of their 20s, but their body cannot keep up anymore, so injuries become more common. People in their 40s and 50s have already learned they cannot do what they did when they were younger and are more careful to avoid injury. But once you reach your 60s, injuries become inevitable regardless of how careful you are. Story 120. One day, someone will take a photo of you, and when you see it, you will be shocked to discover that how you look is not at all how you thought you looked, and you will wonder, who is that old person? Story 121. Your body takes longer to recover from strenuous exercise, and you need more rest than before to allow it to function at its best. I am close to 37-year-old male, and while I can still do most of what I used to do in my 20s in terms of physical feats, my body aches last longer. Story 122. I went to get a vision test on my 29th birthday. You know, the one where you have to say the letters on the chart. It was just shapes, my friend. Story 123. I don't know. It's strange. My biological father is 65. Throughout my life, I have only seen him smoke Camel Lights, drink bourbon, and play softball. He still has a full head of black hair and is quite fit for his age. I am beginning to think that there may be other factors involved. Story 124. You know that ache you get after working out following a long break from exercising? That pain lingers simply because you decided to wake up in the morning. Story 125. I remember the first time a Premiership footballer was younger than me. I stopped actively trying to find new music and just kept listening to old favorites. Then politicians became younger than me. I started getting invited to the weddings of my friends' children. Sirius XM had my music on an oldies station. My knees began hurting. The hangover lasts 2 days. Story 126. When everyone is younger than you, the people working at McDonald's are literal children. When your doctor is older than you. Story 127. Being unable to easily jump down from relatively modest heights or being slightly more afraid to do so. Story 128. I am a high school teacher. Initially, I was often mistaken for a student. One day, one of my better students told me that I do not look like a kid. That was the first sign I vividly remember. Some other things. 1. Looking at photos can be difficult. You really start to see the changes. 2. Metabolism slows down at some point. You simply cannot eat what you enjoy without noticeable consequences. 3. I used to be a heavy runner on and off. One summer, I decided to get back in shape and started running 6 days a week. I could no longer improve my times from working out. Now it feels like, at best, you are just trying to slow down the decline. It is possible, but very difficult. Soreness and recovery can take multiple days. 4. Lack of energy overall. 5. Time passes quickly. Months feel like weeks. Weeks feel like days. Story 129. Inside you are 30, but all the professionals you have been seeing, doctors, dentists, veterinarians who are younger than you are retiring, and you cannot figure out how that happened. Story 130. When you have to train, just get through an average day. When you put your glasses on and do not entirely recognize the older person looking back at you from the mirror. When everyone under 35 ignores your opinion and conversation contributions. You now have time for yourself and do not really know where to begin. Story 131. More self-confident and goofier, and I cannot go down the stairs as fast. But I taught my brain a new trick. Those 6-digit two-factor authentication codes. One glance and I got all 6 digits. No more glancing back and forth. Story 132. I'm only 35, but I have noticed that my left knee makes a sound like someone tightly twisting a roll of bubble wrap when I stand up from a crouched or low position. Story 133. I was thinking about it just the other day. Mentally, I don't feel like I'm aging. I feel like I'm failing in the area of becoming an adult. But the more I read and learn about people, I understand this is indeed a part of adulthood. What I have noticed is my inability to cope with stress. I had an immense and intense load of stress in my early 20s, but it didn't feel like much. Now, as I am just a step away from 30, I feel like I can't take it anymore. A healthy lifestyle and coping skills help a lot. Story 134. One of the unusual things I realized recently is that I have become the person at work who relates everything to old stories. I am no longer the young person building my career, and that realization happened quickly. I have taken this as a sign that it is time to figure something else out, rather than spending the rest of my life doing the same thing. Another thought on my mind recently is realizing that I am past retirement age for most professional athletes. It is strange watching sports coverage talk about retired athletes, or those who are no longer at their peak, and thinking, wait, I am older than them. Sometimes the commentator is a retired athlete who is about 5 years younger than me. That is surprising. A 30-year-old football player would have seemed old when I was 25. Now, that age still feels young. Physically, I do not feel much different, but I have always worked out very hard and noticed the soreness that comes with it, so aches and pains are nothing new. That is why it is important to push yourself when you are young, so that when you are older you do not experience many new physical sensations. I have had so many workout sessions that left me struggling to walk for a few days. Now, if I get out of bed and feel something unusual that might be age-related, it does not even register. Much of what it takes to feel good is about perspective. Story 135. I am 43. Doing the mental math required to let go of your ideals and dreams based on a reasonable assessment of how much time you have left. Love many women, not just one woman. Love many women. Story 136. In my opinion, and this may sound morbid, but your friends, family, and people you know, whether from school or in general, start passing away. Obviously, normal signs like your hair or beard turning gray, white, or silver and falling out or thinning happen, but friends, family, and acquaintances passing on is what I have noticed. For me, friends died from cancer, reckless behaviors like drinking and driving, and random health complications. You also notice people from high school and college who are still alive tend to be out of shape and have difficulty walking up steps. So please eat healthy, work out, or stay active when you are young. Pays dividends as you get older. Getting older has been great for me. I am very fortunate. Definitely not rich, but I am stronger than I have ever been. I feel as though I am in complete control at work, and life overall seems to get better. But again, I realize I am fortunate because this could all be gone tomorrow. Hopefully, you live long enough to get old. Story 137. I am 56 years old and I have noticed that I do not like driving at night or in the rain anymore because I cannot see as well as I used to. Story 138. Waking very early in the morning. When I am not working, I used to cherish my sleep-ins. Now I am awake before sunrise and cannot fall asleep again. I used to wonder why older people wake up early. Now I know it is out of my control. Story 139. Just this past month, I had a genuine moment of feeling old. I started to notice the skin around my mouth more now, as it flaps a little more than before. It feels like the skin on my cheek is covering a bit of the skin under my nose, and it shows in the mirror as well. Story 140. I first felt it coming out of COVID-19. Not even a week before the lockdown, I was at my favorite bar seeing a band that I knew and loved. Then, in 2021, I went back to the same bar and was suddenly older than everyone, and none of the bands I knew were together anymore. I also noticed that everyone younger than me dressed dramatically differently from the way they did just a year and a half earlier. Then, I noticed everyone my age started losing their hair or gaining weight. After a point, I just stopped being interested in going out altogether because of how out of touch I felt. Now in my 30s, I can't express how boring life is. Story 141. My two realizations came when I found myself thinking, ugh, the music is too loud. I cannot hear what anyone is saying. And Jesus, all the music these days sounds the same. It is unfortunate, but one good thing is that I do not care what anyone thinks of me anymore. Story 142. Playing hockey. I used to dominate, but now the young players are skating around me and calling me old. Nothing I can do about it. Story 143. I woke up one day and no longer recognized my face in the mirror. I felt like I had aged 10 years overnight once I hit 40. It was jarring. Story 144. I am not even that old, but with years of knee and medial collateral ligament injuries, I cannot play soccer like I used to. I have played my whole life and I am good at it. Every time I end up getting hurt somehow, I cannot push myself like I used to. It is frustrating. Story 145. I remember falling even while goofing off and hitting the floor and being able to pop back up. After age 25, you hit the floor and do not bounce back. After age 35, you hit the floor and need time to recover. Beyond that, you may seriously injure yourself. Story 146. I'm 40 and I feel fine and can do all the things young people can do within reason. But I feel old, like I don't engage with TikTok or listen to trap music that people in their 20s and 30s enjoy. Story 147. Feels like this. Story 148. I tweaked my back for the second time this year. I have never had back issues before. I turned 50 last November. Story 149. You start calling adolescents children, and you are upset with them because you made bad choices at their age. Story 150. I think about this a lot. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning. They do not go gentle into that good night. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright. Their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight, and learned too late they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death who see with blinding sight. Blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.